Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for joining this morning for our morning Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita session. And we are very fortunate this morning to have His Grace Vishnugada Prabhu from ISKCON Philadelphia to cover today's topic. Hare Krishna Prabhu, please accept my humble
Hare
obeisances.
Krishna.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindhubhyo patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Looks like you've expanded yourself because you're both at ISKCON of Harrisburg and Dear Krishna Das. How's that?
Yes, Prabhu. Just wanted to check whether it's streaming good or not. So I have my other device connected also.
Okay. So you are expanded.
Hare Krishna. And
Okay.
I'm thinking probably we'll have less devotees today because a lot of people devotees might be traveling due to long weekend or whatever.
Oh, okay. Sure. No problem. That's all right. You can speak through the four walls. Sure.
Hare Krishna.
Okay.
So should I share that Param Karuna bhajan, Prabhu?
If you could, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll chant a different tune today.
Okay.
And it's a good idea if you can to unmute yourselves so we can actually have a call and response kirtan. I know many years ago when they started, Zoom classes or Zooming became much more popular during the pandemic. There was a decision by somebody that for the initial kirtan for class, that everybody should mute themselves so that there won't be too much out of sync chanting. But I didn't agree with that. Okay, guess what? People are often out of sync even when they're in the same room. So I would say that a blind uncle is better than no uncle. So we get such little opportunity to chant back and forth that if you can, and if it's convenient for you, I recommend unmuting yourself so we can have a call and response kirtan at the beginning of this class instead of just a solo. So I think at least Dear Krishna Prabhu can unmute yourself. Where are you at work?
No, Prabhu. Today I'm off. So
Okay, good. So you're allowed to unmute yourself. Yes. And anyone else I would encourage. Otherwise it'll just be me and Dear Krishna Prabhu having a serenade here. All right. But it's for Krishna anyway. That's good. It's a different tune now. You'll have to pay attention. Okay. Parama Karuna Pahudvijan Nitai Gaura Chandra.
Parama Karuna Pahudui Jana Nitai Gaura Chandra.
Parama Karuna Pahudvijan Nitai Gaura Chandra.
Parama Karuna Pahudui Jana Nitai Gaura Chandra.
Sabavatar Shar Shiramani Kevala Ananda Kanda.
Sab avatar sar shiromani keval anand kanda.
Sab avatar Shar Shiramani Kevala Ananda Kanda.
Sab avatar sar shiromani keval anand kanda.
Bhaja Bhaja Bhai Chaitanya Nitai सुदृढ़ा विश्वास खोरी भज भज भाई
भज भाई
चैतन्य
चैतन्य
निताय
निताय
सुदृढ़
सुदृढ़
विश्वास
विश्वास
खोरी
कोरी
ईशायाचार्य सेरा से मजिय मुखे बोलो हरि हरि
विषय छाड़िया
विजय
सेर से मजिया मुखे बोलो हरि हरि
विषयाचार्य सेरा से मजिय मुखे बोलो हरि हरि
विषय छाड़िया सेर से मजिया मुखे बोलो हरि हरि
देखा ओरे भाई त्रिभुवने नाय एमोनो दयालो दाता
देख अरे भाई त्रिभुवने नाय एमुन दोयाल दाता
पशु पाखी जुरे पाषाण विदारे शुनिचार गुण गाता
पशु पाखी जुरे पाषाण विदरे शुनि जानर गुण गाथा
संसारे मजिया रोहिली पदिया से पदे नहिलो आश
संसारे मजिया रोहिली पोड़िया से पदे नाहिलो आशा
आपन कर्म भुंजाए शमन कहोये लोचन दास
आपन कर्म भुंजाय शमन कहो ये लोचन दास
परम करुणा पहो द्विजन निताय गौरचंद्र
परम करुणा बहुदुई जन निताय गौर चंद्र
परम करुणा पहो द्विजन निताय गौरचंद्र
परम करुणा बहुदुई जन निताय गौर चंद्र
सब अवतार सार शिरोमणि केवल आनंद कंद
सब अवतार शार शिरोमणि केवल आनंद कंड
जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजक आचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमान His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada ki jai.
जय
Santa Koti Vaishnavrinda ki jai.
जय
ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
जय
Nam Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai.
जय
Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai.
जय
Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopal Gopinath Shyam Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan ki jai.
जय
Vrindavan Dham ki jai.
जय
Navadvip Mayapur Dham ki jai.
जय
Ganga Mai ki jai.
जय
Jamuna Mai ki jai.
जय
Tulsi Devi ki jai.
जय
Bhakti Devi ki jai.
जय
Shamaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.
जय
All glories to the assembled devotees.
हरे कृष्ण
All glories to the assembled devotees.
हरे कृष्ण
All glories to the assembled devotees.
हरे कृष्ण
All glory to Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga Hari Hari Bol. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namane. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
भगवते
Om Namo
वासुदेवाय
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Hare Krishna, everybody. Thank you for coming to attend, even though it's just before the 4th of July holiday. We're reading and discussing the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela, 7th chapter, and we're at the 33rd verse. This is Bengali language. Eta bali mane kichu kariyā vicāra, sannyāsa-āśrama Prabhu kailā aṅgīkāra. Eta bali mane kichu kariyā vicāra, sannyāsa-āśrama Prabhu kailā aṅgīkāra. Eta bali mane kichu kariyā vicāra, sannyāsa-āśrama Prabhu kailā aṅgīkāra. Please chant.
Eta bali mane kichu kariyā vicāra, sannyāsa-āśrama Prabhu kailā aṅgīkāra. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Can you hear me, Prabhu?
We can hear you.
Eta
welcome.
bali mane kichu kariyā vicāra, sannyāsa-āśrama Prabhu kailā aṅgīkāra.
Thank you. Eta bali, saying this. Mane, within the mind. Kichu, something. Kariyā, doing. Vichāra, consideration. Sannyāsa-āśrama, the renounced order of life. Prabhu, the Lord. Kailā, did. Aṅgīkāra, accept. Translation. Thus, the Lord accepted the sannyas order of life after full consideration. Purport. There was no need for Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to accept sannyas, for he is God himself, and therefore has nothing to do with the material bodily concept of life. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not identify himself with any of the 8 varnas and ashramas, namely Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas. He identified himself as the Supreme Spirit. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, or for that matter, any pure devotee, never identifies with these social and spiritual divisions of life. For a devotee is always transcendental to these different gradations of society. Nevertheless, Lord Chaitanya decided to accept sannyas on the grounds that when he became a sannyasi, everyone would show him respect, and in that way be favored. Although there was actually no need for him to accept sannyas, he did so for the benefit of those who might think him an ordinary human being. The main purpose of his accepting sannyas was to deliver the Mayavadi sannyasis. This will be evident later in this chapter. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has explained the term Mayavadi as follows. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is transcendental to the material conception of life. A Mayavadi is one who considers the body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, to be made of Maya, and who also considers the abode of the Lord and the process of approaching him, devotional service, to be Maya. The Mayavadi considers all the paraphernalia of devotional service to be Maya. That was the end quote. Maya refers to material existence, which is characterized by the reactions of fruitive activities. Mayavadis consider devotional service to be among such fruitive activities. According to them, when Bhagavatas, devotees, are purified by philosophical speculation, they will come to the real point of liberation. Those who speculate in this way regarding devotional service are called kutarkikas, false logicians. And those who consider devotional service to be fruitive activities are called karmanishtas. Those who criticize devotional service are called nindakas, blasphemers. Similarly, non-devotees who consider devotional activities to be material are called pashandis. And scholars with a similar viewpoint are called adhama paduyas. The kutarkikas, nindakas, pashandis, and adhama paduyas all avoided the benefit of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement of developing love of God. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu felt compassion for them, and it is for this reason that he decided to accept the sannyas order. For by seeing him as a sannyasi, they would offer him respects. The sannyas order is still respected in India. Indeed, the very dress of a sannyasi still commands respect from the Indian public. Therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted sannyas to facilitate preaching his devotional cult. Otherwise, he had no need to accept the fourth order of spiritual life. Om Agyana Timirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuranmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Shayam Rupakata Mahyam Dadati Shapandantikam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Before speaking, I'd like to ask the blessings and permission of all devotees, particularly those who may be more advanced in age or advancement in Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna. So this is a very interesting pastime of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepting the renounced order of life, sannyas. And Srila Prabhupada starts out the purport by saying that Lord Chaitanya really had no need for accepting sannyas, because he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And as you know, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there are 6 opulences which the Supreme Personality of Godhead possesses more than anyone else. You perhaps know the verse. What is that? It's a good verse to know. Aishvaryasya samagrasya viryasya yashasha shriya jnana vairagyaschapi. You know this one? Aishvaryasya means wealth. Samagrasya is full wealth. Viryasya, strength. Yasha, fame. Shriya, beauty. Jnana, knowledge. And vairagya. Vairagya means renunciation. Is already fully renounced because he doesn't need anything. He's not dependent on anyone else. any other being or energy. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the source of everything. But just to show mercy to us conditioned souls, and especially those who are impersonalists. And did you notice those different categories of offenders that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur itemized? Nindakas, Pashandis, Kutikakas. If you want to call somebody a bad name, you can use those. If it's true. So many things. But he did that because he wanted to show mercy and help them in their spiritual life. This is not something only Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did, but Lord Chaitanya is giving an example of, it's called Yukta Vairagya. Anasaktasya Vishayan Yatadhanum Bhuyunjata Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe Yuktam Vairagya Muchyate. So this is a principle enunciated by Srila Rupa Goswami, that one should not reject things saying they're material if they can be used in the service of Krishna. So in the Krishna consciousness movement, it was shocking that at the time of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, mostly those who were considered sadhus would not ever drive in a car or wear sewn garments. But Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Srila Prabhupada and us, we know they preach that using anything material for Krishna service, that's the proper use of it. So if you want to have a car, fine, use it for Krishna service, to go to the temple, or to go to a preaching program, or go to Rath Yatra in Harrisburg, or other places. So this principle, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is showing, that was later codified by Rupa Goswami, even though he's not necessarily needed to take sannyas, he took sannyas for Krishna service. And of course, sannyas means there's the external sannyas and there's the internal sannyas. External sannyas means what? How can you tell sannyasi externally? That's a question.
Somebody who is in the appearance of sannyasi, by dress, by look.
What's the dress?
It's a orange cloth.
Technically, it's supposed to be saffron.
Saffron. Yeah.
You know, you have saffron in your kitchen. That's
Yes,
the color.
Yeah.
But anyway, in this kind, it's become it's migrated a little bit to orange, or more orange. But anyway, that's the saffron dress. One not folded in the back, but one lungi type of wrap around the waist. So are there other circumstances where people dress differently for specific purposes?
Yeah, it could be any ceremony, or for example, if I go to work, I have in particular attire I have to go with.
You have to wear a tie?
Yeah, I mean at least some semi-formal, not
Yes.
completely for. Yeah.
Yes. And if you go there and you're dressed in lounge clothes, people won't take you seriously, isn't it?
Correct. No.
And there's policemen who wear a uniform, and when policemen wear the uniform, then people will pay closer attention to what they have to say. If the policeman tells you to do something and you don't do something, what's going to happen? You might get arrested and put in jail. So you better be careful about that. There was an interesting experiment done back in the 60s. It was called the Stanley Milgram experiment. And what they did was they randomly assigned people, at least they supposedly randomly assigned people to experimenters and subjects. And the task was that the idea was they were researching punishment. If a person is punished, will that help them remember random words? So they gave the subject random words, a list of them, maybe 10 random words, and they were supposed to memorize them in a certain order. So the setup was that the subjects were in one room in a chair that was hooked up to an electric shock. And the observers were in another room, but they could see through a glass window into the room where the subjects were sitting in their chair. So anyway, the idea was the person who was supposed to memorize the words, if they got one wrong, then the person on the other side of the glass would shock them, would flip a switch and shock them mildly. But as they, if they got more than one wrong, they would shock them with higher and higher doses of electricity. So they had a board, and on the board there was, 10 volts, 20 volts, 30 volts, 40 volts, X, like that. So the idea was it helpful to them to learn these words, random words, if they're shocked by making a mistake. Do you follow? Does that make sense? All right.
Yes, Prabhu.
So anyway, what happened was when the person would miss one, the person on the other side of the glass would flip the switch, and the person in the chair would start shaking. Then as it gradually increased, the person in the chair would start really suffering and crying and pleading, don't shock me anymore. But the person on the other side of the glass sometimes would hesitate. But what happened was when the person hesitated, an experimenter would come in a white doctor's outfit and say, no, please continue. And guess what? How many people continued to the end? XXXX. Guess how many? Almost all of them. Almost all of them. Isn't that interesting? Why? Oh, there's this person in the white coat, the dress, and he's saying, oh, please continue, please continue. It turns out that there's actually the person in the chair was in on the whole deal, and it was all fake. There was no electricity going on. But it was a test to see how much people would follow authority, even to the extent of shocking persons with extreme amounts of electricity. So that's just an example, another example of changing dress to become an authority. Of course, that was for a different purpose. And in ISKCON, sometimes also devotees in the early days of ISKCON, we would always go out chanting, practically always in devotee, dhoti and kurta and sari and like that. But at a certain point, the argument was made that it's easier, people will take more books if we go in regular civilian clothes instead of dhoti and sari. And Srila Prabhupada, to a certain extent, accepted that. Not that people would dress as, he didn't like people to dress as hippies or slovenly, but for Krishna consciousness, for the service of Krishna, he agreed to have people dress in civilian clothes, neat civilian clothes, if the result was more books were distributed. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, giving that example, even though he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead and is not a member of any caste or order of life, he donned the dress of a sannyasi to give people the opportunity to engage in service to him. So this is very interesting, very interesting. How do we know that Lord Chaitanya didn't identify with being a sannyasi, even though he did accept the sannyas order?
Please, can you please repeat the question, Prabhu?
How do we know that Lord Chaitanya didn't really identify as a sannyasi? Sometimes we find that people who are in a particular position, whether it be president or manager of a company or GBC or whatever, they can become fixed on their material position and utilize it for other reasons. So how do we know that Lord Chaitanya wasn't so much focused on his identity as a sannyasi?
Because he was not accepting any disciples. I don't know. Maybe he was not. He was still chanting and doing some kirtan.
Yes, and there's more, and there's more. As you know, you might be forgetting right now, when Lord Chaitanya went to the Rath Yatra festival in Jagannath Puri, and he saw Lord Jagannath, he first offered his obeisances to Lord Jagannath by chanting, Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmanitaya Cha Jagaritaya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Namaha. And then he chanted, what did he chant next? Naham Vipra Cha Narapati Navaisha Na Shudro Naham Varni Na Grihapati Na Vanasto Yatirva. Gopi Bhartir Padakamaleo Dasa 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 Anudasa. He said, I'm not a Brahmin. I am not a Kshatriya. I am not a Vaishya. I'm not a Shudra. I'm not a Brahmachari. I'm not a Grihastha. I'm not a Vanaprastha. I'm not a sannyasi. Yatirva means not a sannyasi. Who am I? Gopir Bharta Padakamaleo Dasa Dasa. I am only the servant of Krishna, the master of the gopis. That's it. So he's showing us his actual position. So this is consistent with the verse Sarvopani vinirmuktam, Sarvopadi vinirmuktam, Tatparatvena nirmalam, Rishikesha Rishikena sevanam, Bhakti ruchate. Bhakti means becoming free from all material designations. That is the standard of bhakti. So Lord Chaitanya, exemplifying pure bhakti, he must be that way. But showing that identity and also the yukta vairagya, he accepted the sannyas order just to deliver the fallen souls, particularly in this case, the Mayavadi sannyasis, which we'll find out later, but everybody, but particularly Mayavadi sannyasis, because even the Mayavadi sannyasis were practiced to offer respects to another sannyasi. Why is that? Because in Mayavadi sannyas beliefs, they think that when one takes sannyas, they become equal to Narayan. So when Mayavadi sannyasis meet, they say to each other, you know what? Namo Narayan.
Namo Narayan.
I offer you're Narayan. I offer my obeisances to you. So this is very interesting. So then this renunciation that Lord Chaitanya took, it's not something that he was not already doing. Actually, there's a verse that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya spoke after he was converted to being a pure Vaishnava by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And in his ecstasy, he composed 2 verses. And they were written down on a palm leaf, and they were given to Lord Chaitanya. And Lord Chaitanya read them, and then he tore them up. But interestingly, a devotee who was going to deliver them, he thought that might be Lord Chaitanya's activity. So he wrote down the two verses on the outside wall before he gave the palm leaves on which they were written to Lord Chaitanya. So that verse that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya wrote was Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti Yoga. Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti Yoga. Shikarsham Ekam Purusha Purana. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Sharira Dhari. That means Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, has descended to teach us Vairagya Vidya. Bhakti, yes. Vairagya Vidya means renunciation. And Srila Prabhupada in the purport says this Vairagya Vidya, he said, what is Vairagya Vidya? He says, what is Vairagya Vidya that he's coming to teach? He equates Vairagya Vidya with devotional service. Isn't that interesting? That anyone who's actually a devotee, they're practicing Vairagya Vidya, because an actual practicing devotee, someone who's beyond the material conception of life, understanding that they're servants of Krishna, they understand that everything belongs to Krishna, and they're practically utilizing that understanding in their own life. Does that make sense? Doesn't matter whether someone is a brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha, or sannyas, Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, if they're practicing the principle of Vairagya Vidya, meaning to use everything in their environment as far as possible in the service of Krishna, that is actual Vairagya. And it's none different than devotional service. Does that make sense? Therefore, the verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Vasudevi Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janiyatu Ashu Vairagyam Jnanam Chayada Hoitukam. By actual practice of devotional service, immediately knowledge and renunciation are there. So this example was given by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by his taking sannyas. And Lord Chaitanya took sannyas in his 24th year. Some people, and when he had a beautiful, devoted wife and doting mother, and he was quite well popular in Navadvip with hundreds and thousands of followers. But in spite of that, he gave up all those things just to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or to give the example of how to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Some people criticize Lord Chaitanya taking sannyas. Did you know this?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah. And there's a verse that Lord Chaitanya himself quoted from the what's Purana? The Purana. I forget the Purana. Anyway, it's a Rajasic Purana. It goes, Ashvameda Gavalamban Sannyasa Palapaitrakan Devarena Sutatpatim Kalo Pancha Vivarjayet. These 5 things are forbidden in Kali Yuga. Ashvameda. Ashvameda means, what does it mean?
The Ashwamedh Yagya,
That's a horse sacrifice.
or horse sacrifice. Yeah.
Gavalamban. Gavalamban means cow sacrifice. Sannyasa. Sannyas. Palapaitrakan. Offering of flesh to the forefathers. Devarena Sutotpatim. And begetting a child in a dead brother's wife. These 5 things are forbidden in Kali Yuga. So there's the Vedic aphorism is there. How do you account for that? And Lord Chaitanya himself, he quoted that verse in his discussions with Chandkazi, when Chandkazi was trying to support the idea of beef eating as prevalent in the Vedas. So what's the answer? Brahma Vaivarta Purana. Thank you. So it seems that Lord Chaitanya is transgressing Shastra by taking sannyas in Kali Yuga, isn't it?
Yeah, it looks, at least seems like.
And so that Lord Chaitanya himself said, he quoted that verse. So a very interesting explanation is given by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, which you can find in that book, Sri Bhaktisiddhanta Vaibhava. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, yes, but he mentioned this, that sannyas is not allowed in Kali Yuga only incidentally. He quoted the verse because the Kazi was trying to support beef eating on the basis of Shastra. So to counteract that, he quoted the verse, but he wasn't focusing on the idea of no sannyas in Kali Yuga. So it was incidental. And then he says, the sannyas mentioned in this verse, which is from a Rajasic Purana, not a Sattvic Purana, is in the traditional Karmakanda section of that Purana. For pure Vedic Brahmanas, it's not possible. But for someone who wants to surrender their life, their words, their hopes and dreams and everything to Krishna, that's the whole point of Krishna speaking Bhagavad Gita. At the end of Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, Sarva dharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam braja. So there's not going to be a shastric injunction that's going to stop someone from giving their life to Krishna, and which is the real essence of sannyas. So karma sannyas, or just routine sannyas for everybody, is not recommended. But for someone who's dedicated, who wants to dedicate their life to service of Krishna, certainly one can take sannyas if one is very serious about that. And then he said, even there was, during the time of Lord Chaitanya and later, there are smarta Brahmins who are very persnickety about following Vedic rules. And they say in their smriti that when you see a sannyasi, if you don't offer obeisances immediately, what's the prayaschitta? You have to fast that day. When first seeing a sannyasi, you have to fast if you don't offer obeisances immediately. So he says, even these people who are very strict about, the details of shastric injunction, they must recognize that in Kali Yuga there have to be sannyasis. Otherwise, why would they say that? Does that make sense? Lord Chaitanya's guru, Ishwar Puri, and his Param Guru were also sannyasis. And in fact, Lord Chaitanya's nine of Lord Chaitanya's principal associates were all sannyasis, and they were in Kali Yuga. Furthermore, all the heads of the four Vaishnavacharya sampradayas, Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, Vishnu Swami, and Nimbarka Swami, were also sannyasis, and they were also in Kali Yuga. So it's not correct to think that renunciation is not allowed in the Vaishnava Sampradaya. Although at times it became less known and more obscure. For example, prior to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, there was Gaurikishore Das Babaji, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and Jagannath Das Babaji. There was a prevalence of renunciation in the Babaji category. At the end of his life, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur also accepted the Babaji initiation. But those three didn't formally take sannyas initiation. But Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, doing great service by researching in the Vaishnava histories, noted all these things that we previously mentioned. And just because sannyas wasn't as prominent at that time, he rejuvenated it by reinstituting it in his Gaudiya Math. And Srila Prabhupada, continuing the line of his spiritual master, continued that tradition of accepting sannyas and giving sannyas to others. What was the purpose of that sannyas? Just as Lord Chaitanya showed, to preach and to elevate souls so that they can go back to home, back to Godhead, instead of being rotting in this material world. Anyway, these are some thoughts on Lord Chaitanya accepting sannyas. You might know that Lord Chaitanya took sannyas. Well, who is this sannyas guru?
Guru
Keshava Bharati.
Keshava Bharati Maharaj, yeah.
And Keshava Bharati was from the Sankara Sampradaya. It's an interesting thing. So people say, the devotees have said that the reason is Lord Chaitanya's spiritual master was still on the planet, but he took sannyas from Keshava Bharati. One reason was because was more prominent that the sannyasis at that time were not necessarily Vaishnavas, but there were Vaishnava sannyasis, but not as commonly. But when Lord Chaitanya took sannyas, Keshava Bharati asked him, well, I don't know the sannyas mantra that you should use. So Lord Chaitanya first gave him in his right ear the sannyas mantra. So technically, Lord Chaitanya first initiated Keshava Bharati into as a sannyasi, and then as a Vaishnava sannyas, and then Keshava Bharati gave that same mantra back to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. A very interesting story. Hare Krishna. Questions, comments, corrections?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you so much for. I always was not very clear about the reasons for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's sannyas, but after today's class, I kind of knew those points, but couldn't probably absorb them. But definitely, the way you explained today, I think I very well understand the true reasons for his sannyas and his intention, and how can we reconcile it with the verse that you quoted, that we should not it is not encouraged in Kali Yuga,
Yes.
the sannyāsa-āśrama. And that's how we can also see Srila Prabhupada's getting sannyāsa-āśrama, leaving the family and all that.
And his disciples and grand disciples, yeah.
Yes. Yes. So I already see hand raised from Sarvang Sundar Damodar Prabhu. Please go ahead, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Prabhupada, all glories to the devotees on the call. Thank you for such a nice class about closely understanding the sannyas initiation, of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I was trying to understand, even in ISKCON we see nowadays, we are seeing a lot of second generation devotees are taking sannyas more, at least personally I am getting more aware of it, that a lot of devotees are taking sannyas. In ISKCON, what is the purpose of sannyas? Can you comment on that a little bit?
Yes. It's exactly the same. The purpose is exactly the same as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taking sannyas, to facilitate more preaching. In society, there's always need for itinerant people who are detached or practicing detachment to the highest degree, and traveling and inspiring others in different temples. So that was Prabhupada's idea, just like Lord Chaitanya traveled and inspired devotees. It's not that the persons locally can't be inspired by the preachers, but also it's an added energetic, dynamic factor in revitalizing and keeping the movement of Krishna consciousness on track and enlivened in Krishna consciousness. So having itinerant preachers who go from town to town, village to village, temple to temple, country to country, keeps the Krishna consciousness environment dynamic and pure. The tendency is for even Vaishnavas, when one is in one's home or in one's locale, the tendency it will be to become attached to certain comforts and things like that. Although an advanced devotee automatically becomes detached, but the tendency is for us living in homes and stuff to become attached. So having the opportunity to associate with people on a higher principle of renunciation, that's always an advantage. One thing also, Lord Chaitanya, even though there are many different sannyas names for one who takes the sannyas order, Lord Chaitanya, he did not take a sannyas name. He kept his kept a brahmachari name. Chaitanya is a brahmachari name from a person who's in the Bharati Sampradaya. So the reason he did that, nobody spoke about that until Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur revealed that the reason he did that was to reinforce the idea that even after taking sannyas, the person remains a servant of the spiritual master. So the brahmachari is a servant of the spiritual master. Similarly, even a sannyasi is a servant of the spiritual master. Those are some ideas. Maybe Dear Krishna Prabhu or others have more comment on that.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. No, I totally, I think I have the same understanding. The sannyāsa-āśrama in ISKCON, because we still have Mayavadis on the planet. So, and people have this tendency to get attracted by the externals, usually. But the beauty in ISKCON is sannyāsa-āśrama is, one has to go through all the rules and regulations, all the protocols before one can get sannyas. So, like you said, it displays more purity, more dynamic preaching. So I think that I have the same understanding.
Yes. On one hand, all sincere devotees are on the platform of a sannyas. Jayadvaita Maharaj. Jayadvaita Maharaj was a brahmachari for many years. And most of the time, during Srila Prabhupada's time on the planet, Jayadvaita was a brahmachari. And he asked Srila Prabhupada for sannyas more than once. And you know what Srila Prabhupada said? No. No. He said, brahmachari is as good as sannyas. Again and again, he said. So after Prabhupada left, Jayadvaita Maharaj, he also asked again, he applied for becoming a sannyas. And in the initial stage, first year or two, the GBC rejected his request because Srila Prabhupada had said that. Do you follow? Then they allowed. But in the initial stage, they said no, because technically anybody who's actually doing full devotional service, they're as good as a sannyasi. There are external things. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, anashrita karma palam karyam karma karotiya sa sannyasi cha yogi cha nanyaragniya na chakriya. Anybody who's not attached to the fruits of his work or her work, and works that is obligated, is in the renounced order of life. But it's still good to have some people who are specifically, knowingly, and at least externally doing that and talking about that to help to keep the society healthy. And we pray for them. We pray for them, and we pray for us.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that point, because I was going to ask you about that. We have a good mix of spiritual masters who are sannyasis, vanprastha, or even in the grahastha ashram. So
Yes.
sometimes even it is useful. My understanding is that somebody in the grahastha ashram can reach out to more families, because the
Yes.
sannyasi,
Yes.
there is a limitation and barriers. So it's a good mix.
Somebody could think, well, that person, they're just a renunciate. What do they know? What do they know about my situation? Whereas a person who might be in the grahastha ashram, yeah. Therefore, the verse was Lord Chaitanya agreed. He told Ramananda Roy, Kiba Vipra, Kiba Nashi, Shudra Keneno, Jai Krishna Tattva Veta Se Guru. Anybody who knows Krishna, they're the guru. Grihastha Vanaprastha doesn't matter. Brahmachari, if they know Krishna, in truth, not superficially, but in truth, they're guru. So a guru can become from any category, as long as they're sincere and true in serving Krishna.
Yes, yes. Wonderful point, Prabhu, because at least as ISKCON devotees or followers of Srila Prabhupada, we should be very careful in not making judgments or distinctions depending on the ashram of the spiritual master,
Yes.
like you said.
Unnecessary distinctions. Yeah.
Yeah. And even somebody might not be even the spiritual master, but could be very, very elevated. We have so many wonderful devotees like you in this moment who are guiding through their examples. So it's
Well, not like me, but anyway.
yeah, I mean, over the period of last 10, 15 years, it's amazing to see how many wonderful devotees at different levels of their services we have. So I always advise devotees not to make any distinction, any judgments based on just the externals.
Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai. Yes. Anyway, any other questions? This was a
We
good
have few
question.
more minutes. Devotees, if anyone has any questions, any doubts, it's a beautiful topic. A lot of us get, I would say, illusioned by these kind of externals sometimes, but very good topic to clarify.
In the early days of ISKCON, there was a little joke made sometimes that if people take sannyas so that they can get the Maha plate.
I remember this one.
Yeah. So, but that is not the bona fide impetus for sannyas, but to serve to increase one's service. And that is very what Srila Prabhupada did when he took sannyas from Keshav Maharaj in the Keshavji Mutt in Mathura. As soon as he took sannyas, you know what he did? He immediately went and preached. He immediately left there and went to preach.
That
and Srila Prabhupada would often, when there was a sannyasa initiation, he would send the sannyasi immediately, go preach here. He'd just send them to places to preach immediately, because that's the real function of sannyas. And when Srila Prabhupada took sannyas, he first asked for sannyas from the sannyasi who was in charge of the Chaitanya Mutt, which was the original temple of his Guru Maharaj in Mayapur, Chaitanya Mutt. It's very close to the Yoga Pit. And he asked for that devotee to please give him sannyas. And the devotee said, no, you come here, you work under our direction for some time, and if we think you're qualified, then we'll give you sannyas. That's what he said. His other god brother, Bhakti Pragya Keshava Maharaj, Prabhupada asked him, then he asked that god, he said, Bhaktivedanta Prabhu, yes, you must take sannyas because sannyas is important for preaching. So immediately he gave. So he always appreciated that method of his godbrother, Bhakti Pragya Keshava. He said, to preach, you must be sannyasi. Anyway, of course, we understand that. Yeah. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. So we are past 1 minute past 9 o'clock. If no more questions, no more additions or comments, thank you so much, devotees, for joining. And thank you, Prabhu, for
Hare Krishna.
blessing us with your association this morning. So if devotees are traveling, it's a long weekend. Have a safe travel, have a Krishna conscious travel. Keep hearing, keep listening to Krishna Katha. And I think we have a class tomorrow also. Rishit Prabhu will be here. So we will look forward to see all of you tomorrow morning. Hare Krishna.
Panchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindhubhyevacha च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमः।
Prabhupada ki jai. His
Jai.
Vishnugada Prabhu ki jai. All good.